Greetings, Internet. Durjinn here, coming out of silence to address the criticism thrown at a game that has now become infamous. A game so despised by gamers and canonites alike that even cosplayers and schmoes and guyliner weighed in against it. I speak, of course, of Aliens Colonial Marines. So peel away from Minecraft for a minute, we got some ground to cover. To be honest, it was the onslaught of bad press that drew me to this title, but the more I listened to the opinions available, the more I began to pick up on certain patterns of speech that led me to believe that Aliens Colonial Marines was being thrown under the bandwagon as more and more voices weighed in against it. Terms like hand-waving and bait and switch became so commonplace in most of the reviewed material that I began to grow angry, and it's forced my hand, bringing Chaos Productions and her subsidiaries back online after an ironic 6-year hiatus. I'll admit this title is not without faults, like some titles that I could mention but won't, but it really didn't deserve the bad rap it received. That being said, let's get to it. For those not privy to the subject matter at hand, you, the player, take the reins of Space Marine Corporal Winter, sent as part of the rescue mission to the fabled Sulaco that has somehow found its way back to LV-426. I sent your questions and apprehension, and special thanks to YouTube member Wedge GTX for showcasing the DLC package Stasis Interrupted that laid out a slew of answers that further quenched my lingering issues that arose throughout the storyline. Anyway, as logic and years of cinema conditioning would dictate, things invariably go south. Through a series of unfortunate circumstances, a worst-case scenario comes to pass, and back to the forbidden landscape of LV-426 you go in a constant battle for survival as you uncover the Corporation Weyland-Yutani's insidious plans for the xenomorph species. However, it's all the complaints that bring me before you today, so let's deal with some of those. By far the loudest complaint seems to be connected to a demo trailer that was released at E3 in 2011 showing a much more evolved product than what ended up on disc. Well, this must be the first time E3 has spawned false hopes about a product, huh? Happens more times than we want to admit here recently, but it is what it is. Never mind that the highest end processors of the time would have undoubtedly bogged down with that amount of detail, but coding isn't the same duck walk it was back at the height of the age of Atari. It's why we get downloadable content and updates instead of complete games anymore. Add to this the desire to utilize console capabilities and you get miles of code that need to be scaled back to be feasible to work in practice. Originally, Aliens Colonial Marines was slated to be a PlayStation 2 era release, but spent 6 years in development hell and changed development hands 4 times during its production. It's a miracle that it looks as good as it does, let alone being released at all. I would address the allegations of shoddy textures, but let's face facts. Gearbox Games is hardly known for breathtaking textures. Next on the list, we have the widely voiced complaint of the enemy AI being broken and the game itself being far too easy. Now, I'm not claiming by any means to be a first-person shooter virtuoso, but just to document this title, the difficulty had to be toned down to recruit, and even then I died. A lot. A whole lot. Where the Xenos are concerned, it's real easy to forget that they're little more than social insects of humanoid size that bleed acid. As such, it stands to reason they'd move and attack in swarms. There is no Xeno trade school after all, and aren't known for decadent oration. If it was expected that the iconic aliens were going to exhibit squad-based tactics or, I don't know, martial arts, then you're way off base. Regarding the way you mercs that spring up throughout the experience, I feel it beautifully breaks up the teeth-grinding tension of fighting stealthy aliens in the darkness, and is way better than the alternative of constant unending xenoswarms in that same darkness. Another major point in contention was where 20th Century Fox lent the license to the Aliens universe to add authenticity to the experience, thereby making it canon to the aliens' intellectual property. This upset many a fanboy, it seems, as it went far outside of what existed already in terms of story. Heading the charge in this uproar was this guy, Corporal Dwayne Hicks. As many of the general public already know, his cryotube was shown to be full of hamburger by the beginning of Alien 3. Again, special thanks to Wedge GTX for chronicling the DLC to further help this make sense. Besides, it always seemed to be a disrespectful and unceremonious way in which Hicks was offed in Part 3, and the ensuing movie, it was subpar to the first two in the series. Furthermore, Aliens Resurrection, Part 4, was blasphemy. Is xenomorphs given live birth? Yeah, no. And yet it's still considered canon as of this broadcast. But how is Hicks still alive? Well, the short answer...
4 cryopods ejected safely, but obviously wasn't in mine.
For there to be this much outcry, there has to be more issues with this title. In the spirit of being fair, let's see how it stacks up against the volume of what we've come to expect in the Alien universe. Starting with the necessities. Alien xenomorphs. Check. Stark metallic structures. Check. Environment so dark you'll need a flashlight. Check. Artifacts and collectibles from the last installment like Newt's doll, Hudson's demise, and Bishop's butt. Check. A queen alien so beastly you'll have to launch her out of an airlock. Check. What about the iconic gear? Pulse rifle. Check. Does it sound like a pulse rifle? Check. The handy motion tracker. Check. A flamethrower to set things on fire. Check. The iconic smart gun. Check. A power loader that handles like a cement mixer full of doorknobs. Check. Those delightful hand welders. Check. Grenades reminiscent of breath spray. Check. Okay, do we have any new stuff? Sure we do. Customizable loadout of old and new weaponry with interchangeable parts and optional skins. Obligatory knickknacks like dog tags and audio logs to pick up and collect. Faceless Wayuu mercs bent on company protocol. They've even included a few new alien breeds as well. There's the boiler, you find those in the sewer. The vicious beastie known as the Raven. A charging juggernaut called the Crusher. There are spitters as well. Guess what they do? There's also a multiplayer aspect that still technically exists. There are still games still being played even 4 years after release, but it's about what you'd expect. Deathmatch aliens fighting deathmatch marines, and deathmatch marines fighting deathmatch aliens. The other 3 game modes, Extermination, Escape, and Survivor, they lie dormant for the most part, save for groups of motivated friends. So is this the greatest title to ever come from a film property? No, but it's not the worst thing to manifest from adaptation either. After 6 years of being on the shelf and 4 different sets of developer hands, is it all it could have been? Well, no, but it was never going to meet the astronomical expectations set before it anyway. But instead of being grateful this title beat the odds and made it to disc, we have a culture that would rather complain that it shows its age by way of coding or supposed lack of difficulty that couldn't match up to what the majority had hoped for through the oceans of hype that engulfed this game. Then again, there are those that would say Dark Souls ripped off Demon Souls, despite the 2 titles being designed and produced by the same company. Perhaps we've grown complacent as gamers and maybe a bit spoiled in what we've come to expect from brand-name titles. I'm sure there are those out there who were upset that Wolfenstein The New Order put Nazis on the moon in an alternative timeline. Is it fan service? Sure, the alien stamp on the name should have given that away. Will the millennials get the references or appreciate the nostalgia aspect? No, millennials tend not to get much, it would seem. At the end of the day, this title delivered what I expected it to deliver, and it's a shame that bad press left it out in the cold. But it is what it is, and I'm but one voice screaming against the void. Do you disagree? Am I way off the map? Tell me as such. That's why the comments are there. That being said, and my piece being spoken, I bid you a good day.